This video is brought to you by PrizePicks. Hey, what's up, everybody? A big week for questions, right? Myles Garrett trade. We're going to just jump into it. If you want to ask questions, make sure you're subscribed, notified, so you can know when the Q&A prompt drops. Dr. Nate Palm with this question here, who says this. Hey, Q, do you think Andrew will take a big swing at quarterback in the 2027 draft by packaging the Browns' 2 first-round picks and their 2028 first-rounder to move up and get his guy? I know it's still very early, but with the Jets, Cowboys both owning extra first-round draft picks, it feels like Arch and Dante could be out of reach. That said, the Browns could be in a good position to get a third quarterback in this class. What's your take? Well, once we get to that conversation, right, because Arch is somebody that, because of the pedigree, we're confident he's going to be in that first pick conversation before the season starts. And, like, he did play well at the end of the last season, but he's a Manning. If he can walk and chew bubblegum, somebody's going to take him #1 overall. Dante Moore, I thought, played at a level where he would be a top 5 pick last year. I think that's going to translate to what he did this year. When we're talking about a third quarterback, and then most importantly, talking about trading up for 3 first-round picks to get a imaginary third quarterback, we got to ask ourselves, like, what if that guy's not in that class? I know there's been a lot of hype about the 2027 class, but really, only thing we know about that class is Dante Moore and Arch Manning. Outside of that, everybody else could fluctuate wildly up and down these draft boards from where we have them. So if you don't think you're going to be in a position, and this is kind of what my overall issue is with some of the draft compensation that we got back and it not being enough, if you can't put together a package that's going to beat out the Jets or the Cowboys, who might be looking to move on from an aging quarterback, in Dallas's case, but in New York's case, like, they're definitely just looking for a quarterback to begin with. If you can't outbid those guys, that's a problem. Now, ultimately, where the Browns end up on the draft order is going to matter, where the Jets are in the draft order, where the Cowboys are in the draft order. Because the #1 factor for a team that'll be willing to trade a quarterback, if they have one already and they somehow end up with the pick, which, again, not very common. Most teams that end up with that pick are going to take the quarterback and not listen to any calls. But let's say Tennessee gets the pick and they're still all in on Cam Ward. What Tennessee's going to care about the most is, can we still get the guy that we want with the pick that we trade to? And then the extra draft compensation starts to matter, right? But that's the first thing that has to be answered, because Tennessee's going to covet somebody, or whoever it is that has that pick that's willing to trade. They're going to covet somebody, and they're going to covet getting that player and getting a compensation for it. So all of those things are going to matter. I don't think it's likely that the first-round pick that the Browns got in the Myles Garrett trade is going to be directly related to their quarterback, unless they're okay with taking a quarterback in the later part of the first round. Outside of that, I don't think it gets involved in some crazy trade package. I don't think the Browns are going to have enough to make some kind of crazy trade offer unless they end up in a very favorable position in the draft. So I don't really think this is going to help us take that swing at quarterback. I think where the Browns sit because of their win-loss record is going to be the most useful thing there. The next question comes from Vince, who says this. Would you rather have one superstar on one side of the ball, or a bunch of average to below average players, or a cohesive unit of both average players with no superstars? To me, it feels like AB is trying to accomplish the latter. I genuinely think the defense will develop over the years to be equally as good as they were last year, if not better. Man, I really don't think we're being realistic about what we lost here. One, would I take a superstar on one side of the ball versus I would want the superstar. You want the superstar, right? You want that ability to have the best player on the field, especially if you have built out a contending team. My issue with this hypothetical is, why can't you have both? Why can't you have a superstar, and why can't you build out a team that has good players. That happens all the time, right? It's not rare to do that. It doesn't have to be either or. And I promise you, Andrew Berry is not trying to build a roster with no superstar players. I promise you, Andrew Berry wants a superstar player. I think he understands and appreciates the value of a superstar player. And you just can't ignore that. Like, look at the reason that the Rams were okay trading Jared Verse for Myles Garrett, and it's because at the end of the day, they wanted a superstar on that team. And they feel like if they have a superstar on that team, they have a chance to win it all, more so than if they just have a good team. I mean, the team that you traded with is telling you exactly how to get it done. Because the Rams, they did the same exact thing, and it landed them a Super Bowl the last time they did it, right? The Jared Goff trade, where they took a quarterback who was okay but not a star, and they traded for somebody who was a star in Matt Stafford, and that ended up being enough to get him over the hump. Really good players are extremely important in building a football team. You need guys who can just be better than everybody else around them. That's going to be important. You really, really need that on a football team, especially if you're trying to win a championship. And the problem the Browns have is that they traded their superstar, and now they have to find a way to get another superstar, which is very difficult. Which is why I wanted more pick-wise in return for Jared Verse, who I think is a really good player, maybe even a star-level player, not a superstar-level player. And that's going to be one of the most difficult tasks for Andrew Berry that he's ever had. And a lot of GMs have had that task and not been able to fill it because finding a superstar player is very difficult. Very difficult. Dentel with the next question says, what's up, Q? Can you make a video ranking the upcoming college quarterbacks for the 2027 draft? I will cover these college quarterbacks during the season. I'm not going to rank them before the season because we saw what happened to rankings last year, right? I try to stay away. I'll cover certain guys and talk about them, but let's see who wins the Browns quarterback competition. Let's get into the college football season, and then we can start doing that, right? But before, it just feels like a bit cynical to do that all the way in June. You know what I mean? Like, I'll wait until we can be in the regular season for college at least and then talk about these guys. But maybe a preview before the season, the college football season, so maybe something in August. But in June, feels a bit cynical to be out here talking about guys based on, like, spring game performances. You know what I mean? Zach Schaefer says this. Hey, Q, I feel like we got properly compensated, for the Myles Garrett trade, considering the fact that Versus value on the open market would at least be one first-round pick, if not more. When you look at it from that angle, it makes it seem like we got a lot more for Myles, and Verse is a proven player at a premium position that really fits our window. Even if we've gotten 2 more first-round picks instead of Verse, we would have not gotten this much value. I think the proper value for Myles Garrett was 2 first, Jared Verse, 3rd-round pick, maybe a 2nd-round pick. So, no, I don't think we got proper value, to be honest. I think we are underneath it because the first-round picks really don't hold that much value to me because they're late first-round picks. So that's why I did want the young star, and Jared Verse is qualified in there. I just wanted a young star, 2 first-round picks, and more draft compensation, right? A 3rd-round pick or something like that on top of it instead of a first, a 2nd next year, and then a 3rd the year after. If you put that in the trade charts, that's what a 1st, Jared Verse, a 3rd, and a 5th this year. It's not enough value for me. So yeah, that's my only thing with it. I just don't think that they got proper value. I think that they undersold a little bit. This would not have been enough for me personally to pull the trigger on a Myles Garrett trade unless I had to. And the Browns weren't in a situation where Myles' contract dictated that they had to do it. The carry guy says this: how many of Myles Garrett's sacks last year were because of the defense, and how many were because of his sheer dominance? I don't know what you're asking here, but if you're trying to sell me on this idea that Myles Garrett's production last year was a creation of the parts around him instead of Myles Garrett just being that good, I'm just going to stop you right there. Myles Garrett didn't get carried to 23 sacks. Sure, did some guys help him? Yes. Did the defensive line support around him help? Yes. But Myles Garrett was capable of getting 23 sacks last year because Myles Garrett is that good at football. Myles Garrett helped that defense more than that defense helped Myles Garrett. And it's not because that defense wasn't good around him. It's a very good defense, but it's because Myles Garrett is that good. You know what I mean? So, no, I don't think that he got carried by the defense last year or anything even similar to that assertion. So I'll stop you right there. You know what I mean? I feel like you're tripping a little bit. But, yeah, no, I think that he got to that sack record because he's really good. And I think the defense overall benefited much more from having Myles Garrett than Myles Garrett benefited from being on this defense. No disrespect to anybody on this defense. It's not really a disrespectful statement. It's just the truth. PrizePicks is a fun way to earn cash while you watch your favorite teams. No complex betting rules. Just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Here are my picks for this upcoming season, AFC North edition. Jimmy Bernard, I have less than 475. This has to do with volume available in Pittsburgh's offense. Quincy Judkins, I have over 975. Browns improved line. I think the run game's going to be better with it. Chase Brown, under 900 yards. Joe Burrow equals less rushing yards usually for the Bengals offense. Mark Andrews, more than 475 yards. Lamar's going to need a safety blanket. Check to see if PrizePicks is available in your state. You could follow me on the app at Quinn_C to see all my lineups. Download the PrizePicks app today. Play $5 and get $50 in lineup to download the app using the link in the description. Tim says this: what is the cap situation now that Myles is gone and Watson's contract is about to be done? Do we have the cap space? We are still paying for parts of contracts. Here's the thing with the Browns cap situation. It wasn't in a bad spot before the Myles trade, and obviously after the Myles trade, it's in a better spot, but it's not dramatically different from what it would have been before. You know what I mean? They have I think a difference of like $20 million in cap space this year. They'll have a difference of 30 the year after. Like, certainly they'll have more cap space, but the Browns weren't cap struck. Andrew Berry's one of the best cap managers in the NFL, so it wasn't a big thing holding them back, and I don't think anything's changed from what they could have planned to do in 2027 now that Myles is not here. I think they could have done the same exact stuff. They would just have to structure it differently. Luke K9D says this: hey Q, have you noticed how good Bond has been looking since last year? He seemingly seems like a sneaky good pickup. Talking is hard sometimes. But Isaiah Bond has been having a pretty good mini camp. And I am excited about that. I think he was one of the guys who showed a lot of promise last year. And now he's in a position with the added wide receivers that they brought to this room to where he could just do what he's really good at. So I'm super excited for his future. The one caveat I will have is that, traditionally speaking, as somebody who has watched a lot of OTAs and has been a Browns fan for a very long time and have seen us get excited about particular players in OTAs, the smaller wide receiver who can run really fast, that guy is usually a killer in OTAs. It's a lot more shaky whether that guy translates to the regular season, right? So happy to see Bond making progress, getting open. He's looking good. He's passing the test that he can pass. But also, we have seen receivers like Bond have those moments in the OTAs and then not translate it to training camp. Now, Bond has had those moments in the regular season, which is why I think I'm a little bit more excited about this than normal, but still want to see it in pads, right? I still want to see him look this good when there's pads on because, again, undersized guy, smaller frame, speed guy, those guys are kind of built to win in OTAs, but then outdoors in training camp with the pads on, things get a little bit different. Brian Johnson with the next question says this: what's up, Q? I want to know who will be the next 3 or 4 cornerbacks in rotation for Cleveland. This is a big problem for the Browns, especially post Myles Garrett. When Myles was here, you got a lot of margin of error for these cornerbacks. I don't know if that's going to exist the same way without Myles here. So on top of the fact that I didn't feel great about the room before the trade, now with the trade, I feel even more concerned about it. Somebody like Tyson Campbell is a great example of somebody who might not benefit from the expanded freedoms that passers are going to feel now that Myles isn't the edge rusher that they have to deal with. Yeah, I'm a little I'm very concerned about that corner room now because I think with Myles, you could have got away with it for another year and then fixed it. Now, I really think they should add a veteran body in there because I don't think they have enough to hold up. I saw the 3rd round pick in that trade was a Myles conditional pick that can turn into a first if the Rams trade him to someone in our division. So there's no way that actually happens, right? I feel like the compensation that the Rams would need to make that make sense would be ridiculous. I think that was the idea by Andrew Berry. It's one thing to have to trade Myles Garrett out of conference, right? And I think if you look at the rumors, right, he was talking to Philadelphia and he was talking to the Rams. And those are 2 teams that are out of conference for the Browns. So he wasn't really interested in trading him to an in-conference competitor. And he definitely doesn't want Myles Garrett to go to an in-division opponent. That was something that was very intentional with how Andrew Berry had structured this entire process. So this is Andrew doing the work in the back end to make sure that this trade doesn't come back to bite him in the ass. Because if Myles Garrett pops up on the Baltimore Ravens, if you think people are upset with the trade now, you've seen nothing. Right? Because that will be, God forbid the Steelers, right? So Andrew really did a good job protecting his own ass there. And he kind of it's low-key a little bit of a poison pill because it makes that 2029 first untradeable for the Rams. So the Rams' ability to go out and get a Joe Burrow is slightly diminished now because they can't make that trade anymore. And it's if we're going to trade them out of conference, we want to keep them out of conference, right? And especially out of division. So if you don't want to have to deal with that guy at all, I think that was the kind of thought process there. And that's good foresight by Andrew Berry to at least make sure that this trade doesn't bite you in the ass in that way. Because could you imagine? I don't even want to think about some shit like that. That makes me sick to my stomach. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace. We're going to continue on with your hot takes, but first I got to thank my sponsor, PrizePicks. We're going to continue on with your Q&A questions, but first I got to thank my sponsor, PrizePicks.